What is up, everybody? Shawn here with Revv. Today I'm going to be talking specifically about how I dial in tones on my personal D20 amp. So this is basically a tone tips video, but specifically directed towards how I'm apt to dial tones on my personal D20 amp. So we all know that this is a pedal platform amplifier, and it's certainly designed for guys like me that don't necessarily use channel switching amps as much as I use my pedal board into a really great sounding pedal platform amp. So first things first, the way I'm running this is direct out, so the XLR out, straight to my DAW. And what I'm using is an Apogee Quartet, so it's going direct out into the line input on the Apogee Quartet, and then I'm using Pro Tools as my DAW. And the cabinet I'm using is the Revv 4x12 cabinet, and the mic model is Royer 121 and an SM57. And the guitar is basically going into one pedal, the G2. I'm going to use that to give you an example of how the amp reacts to that pedal with different settings, straight to the amplifier. So let's start with a basic clean. Most guys, they like to have their amp be really clean as a platform amp. And we can dial in some more treble, maybe some more mids, maybe a little less bass. And that sounds really sweet. But most guys, believe it or not, especially Nashville players like myself, our clean tones really aren't that clean. They'll have a little bit more breakup to them. Now, that's not to say that this doesn't work. If I want to hit it with a medium overdrive like the G2, it sounds great, but how I like to dial the amp is actually using the crunch channel. So the D20 can be set up for more of a crunchy sound by pulling out the gain knob. So I'll go ahead and do that. But what I like to do, instead of having it actually be a crunch channel, which is what it's doing right now, especially if I turn my guitar back on, that sounds killer. But if you check out what else is happening, of course it's adding gain, but it's also adding, it's basically shelving everything up a bit. It's adding lows and highs and mids. So what I like to do, if I'm not going to use it as more of a dedicated crunch sound, and that's a great crunch sound, but that may not be clean enough, what I'll do is I'll actually turn the volume down quite a bit. So now it's not really that crunchy. It's not super clean, but it's clean. But hear how much bigger and dynamic that sounds. And then if I do want to hit it hard, it will break up a little bit, but if I play softer, it's still relatively clean. Now, the one thing that you may want to do is just turn the treble down, or it's what I do anyways, or you can adjust accordingly with whatever stomp box you happen to be using as your gain. So in this case, it's the G2. I've got it set up in the blue aggression mode. I'll show you the settings. Now, the G2 sounds so much bigger and dynamic as well. Now, if I want to go more aggressive with that sound, I can just move from the blue mode to the red mode on the G2. So I'm not saying this is the right way to run the D20, but it's certainly how I like to run it. Now, if I need to be dead clean, then I'll certainly run it the other way. We can go ahead, go back to cleaner, maybe add a little bit more treble, and now it's really clean. Now, the reason you would want to do that in some cases is if you only run your delays to the front end of your amplifier. Well, if it's a little bit crunchy, your delays might get a little out of control on you or a little hard to wrangle. So in that case, run it cleaner. But even then, if you've got it a little bit crunchy, your delays might not be hot enough to actually overdrive the channel after the guitar signal. But keep in mind, yeah, for the most part, if you're going to run your delays to the front end of your pedal platform amp, you might want to run it a little bit cleaner. This amp does have a really great sounding buffered effects loop. So the delays that you're hearing right now are off of my timeline in the effects loop. And that's how I prefer to run it if I'm going to run kind of crunchy. So just to recap, here's, you know, a lot cleaner with the G2. And that does sound great, but try this type of setting where you're using it more as a little bit slightly broken up, but still very clean. And then here's the G2 again. I really like to run the amp that way personally. If you own a D20, try it both ways and just see what you like. But I just wanted to show you guys kind of a cool trick with this amplifier to get a really big open sound and not necessarily be so focused on having the amp be dead clean as a pedal platform amp. So that's our look at tone tips for the D20. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.